name is Lucille Ross and I'm a compliance specialist, and I will be presenting on capacity building and improved compliance and enforcement. The compliance and enforcement team continued with the provisions of training to CapeNature field staff, and during the reporting period, 7 training sessions were hosted that addressed the subjects listed on the slide as well as other areas of concern. The photograph on the left shows training at Volvokloof, and the photograph on the right shows a mock court training session that was held at Stony Point. The training addressed subjects such as the provisions of Section 42(1) of the Nature Conservation Ordinance in respect of the possession of fauna and flora. The training included the practicalities of opposing bail and suspended sentencing and the correct wording to be used in suspended sentences. The correct wording allows suspended sentences in terms of ordinance offences to be used for similar contraventions of other conservation legislation elsewhere in South Africa. For example, a suspended sentence in the Western Cape can be applied to a case in the Free State if the accused commits a similar offence in that province. CapeNature staff also received training in the handling of evidence and the preservation of the chain of custody, as well as the drafting of statements and photo albums. The photograph on the left shows training hosted at Worcester. The photograph shows Central Landscape staff who attended the training at Paarl. The process of memoranda continued during the reporting period, with 5 more memorandum being drafted to explain various critical aspects of compliance and enforcement in detail. These are all listed on the right-hand side of the slide, with Memo 36, which was the guide to the use of admission of guilt fines list, Memo 37, which was the legislation governing the drafting of statements, Memo 38, which was the understanding the adjustment of the Fines Act, Memo 39, evidence in aggravation of sentences with regards to plant cases, and lastly Memo 40, which was the regulation of non-indigenous CITES-listed flora species in the Western Cape. This shows the examples of the front page of the memorandum include Memo 36, which provide a detailed guide to the CapeNature approved fines list, as well as on the right-hand side, Memo 39 was compiled to provide a comprehensive guideline to giving evidence in aggravation of sentence. These 2 memos were also provided to the South African Police Stock Theft and Endangered Species Unit members for use during investigations. Staff undertake enforcement actions to address contraventions of the ordinance. These enforcement actions take the form of J534 spot fines or case dockets. During this reporting period, capability staff provided input in 31 case dockets in respect of content, formatting and completeness of statements and photo albums, as well as the drafting of charge sheets where necessary. Training was also provided to state prosecutors in the application of the ordinance, especially penalties and sentencing provisions. Specific training was also provided to state prosecutors in the clusters where succulent poaching is prevalent. Critical aspects were highlighted, including the ecological impact of poaching and the conservation status of succulent flora species. The photograph shows 2 of the state prosecutor training events. Photo on the left shows a group attending the session at Bellville Magistrate Court, and the photo on the right shows the group that attended the event in Waterval Farm in Van Reinsdorp. No-horn DNA sampling training was the practical follow-on to the theoretical training that had been provided during July 2020. The training involved a recap of the national norms and standards for the marking of rhino horns, and it also included practical rhino horn sampling and the use of the eRhodes electronic record-keeping app used for rhino horn marking and sampling. Attendees receive certificates of attendance and thus eligible to collect rhino horn DNA samples where appropriate. The photographs show participants in the rhino DNA sampling training. The top picture shows 15 of our officials in the class, and the bottom picture shows one of our officials busy with the sampling of the DNA. 6 CapeNature members received new designations during the reporting period, and 4 of our CapeNature members successfully completed the prescribed EMI training in October 2022. All existing CapeNature EMIs were issued with new official identification cards as required by NEMA to enforce the legislation. A number of CapeNature EMIs also received long service awards during a ceremony that was hosted at the Cape Town City Hall by Minister Bradell during March 2023. The Western Cape Environmental Crime Forum is attended by representatives of environmental management agencies in the Western Cape, including CapeNature, Deer and Dekby, Sandparks, as well as various municipalities. The session started off with a senior officer from DPCI who presented on hostile situations and how to handle oneself in such situations. There were also a number of case studies during which various matters were discussed. The Western Cape Environmental Crime Forum planned to host further training sessions for employees of the various structures that participate in the forum. The photograph of the Western Cape Environmental Crime Forum training that was hosted at the NPA offices during November 2022, and this was attended by 6 CapeNature officials, including a representative from each landscape.